You have watched chapter 1, 2 and 3, right? Right? Oh good, I was afraid that there was someone clicking on this video and not realizing that this is chapter 4, even if it said so on the thumbnail, with how little Titan Hand Chris says about this chapter, compared to You what mate, Chris? Noel G. Spampton and Roaring Tanner. Well then, good that you are not someone weird who would watch only the finale of the series and then complain about it. Intro cued. Time for the device of equal distance constant repetition symbols. Some more layout to fill in those blanks on the side. Now ultimately, to finish things off, the splits. I feel a little bit that I need to start this off with, for those who have problems with fast moving images, down below are chapters. The next one in line will be bringing you past all the fast moving images. Let's just say, I had not a good time with the beginning of this chapter. I do still want to show me completely messing up where I'm supposed to go, because that is just hilarious to see me constantly run circles trying to find where I need to be. For now, let's do this beginning part, where we are just going to church. After that is where the real struggle began, and I will say, this chapter is absurdly long. I said in chapter 3 that chapter is the longest on speedrun.org, but this chapter is the longest I played, so I simply have to do some aggressive cutting and speeding up to get this down to a reasonable amount of time, and even then is it twice the length I would like it to be, as there's just no way to put this down to half an hour without cutting out things I really need to show. So if you're wondering about if it really was necessary to cut out me walking through one room, yes, those times really add up about the entire time it took me to do this chapter, which of course will only be said at the end of it. In fact, at the end of this can we also say finally how long it took me to beat Javel and the Roaring Knight, as those I did after chapter 4, and I didn't want to spoil how much more past chapter 4 it took me to get to them. Still, we are now finally going to be done with the church section. I still have to talk to everyone because I wasn't very certain what I need to do, and I think you needed to talk to everyone, or otherwise Susie wouldn't finish off the punch. Well, not like that bit of extra time would really matter in comparison to what we will now look at, the absurd amount of time I'm going to waste right now, right here. I have simply no idea where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, who I'm supposed to talk to. This is just me running around to all places that look relevant. We will completely ignore the fact that I am simply supposed to go home but then left. That, how should I know that there's where Noel's home is, or that is a place where I need to go? So I simply run around, even ultimately trying to go into the dark world, thinking that maybe in the dark world there is something I need to do there to continue the story. Also, no Tanner for me. I beat him with damage in my chapter 3 run, so we will not be able to put him here, even if that just would be time loss. But hey, maybe that was the thing I was missing, and because of me not knowing where to go, do I have to now watch through this absurdly long cutscene, then go out of the dark world and still not know where I'm supposed to go, so ultimately I go back into the dark world and find even more cutscenes I'm watching. I really do wonder if it is necessary to do this, as otherwise would this entire thing be missing from chapter 5 onwards on some save files, and they would have to do some other tricky things, or maybe it's just constantly locked off if you never saw this cutscene after chapter 4. Whatever it might be, are we finally here at Noel's home? The speed up still does not stop here, as this is just a really long cutscene. The issue being that despite it being a really long cutscene, is there also a lot of gameplay that I mess up horribly. So yes, this will also be shown despite just me being skipping through text and me not knowing where in the world I'm supposed to go. So I'm literally going to every possible corner you could go before I go to the actual place you need to go. Even figuring out that something like on that piano, you can play those keys if you move over them, as long as Chris isn't in that room currently. Next to me also getting to Noel's room, and keep in mind that this is going off a Snowgrave route, so I am here seeing this cutscene, naturally not knowing if I need to see this or not, so I waited out until we get into this cutscene problem, where I start the bad part of this cutscene. The bad part also because it is the longer part, and I have to figure out how to get out of this fast. Well, at least I know what Gomen means. Still are we now back here and have to find out where in the world I'm supposed to go to. And that is a place I searched so hard and long for, really trying to choose every option I could, probably twice, until I finally got there. I do not know what of all these Chris cutscenes you have to see, or maybe you don't have to see any of them in a real speedrun. I simply walk around every angle I can, and whenever I see something interesting happen, do I wait it out to see if that was it. Now so that I can ultimately reach the place where you actually need to go. A place I could swear wasn't there before I got through all these cutscenes. But looking at the recording, can I clearly see that that pathway was there all along, and I simply didn't go through it because I didn't notice it being there. Oh well, at least we are now finding this end of the cutscene, doing it, and have to wait out just a bit more text box mashing before real gameplay can start. Real gameplay, like waiting out these cutscenes and then not be able to go up. Why can you only go left and right? Up would be so much faster. Not like I could much about what is the fastest way to doing this on my first go around with how much time I messed up because of me going to random places I'm not supposed to be at if I want to go to the goal. At least this part looks like a real speedrun with me only getting knocked back once. So close to real gameplay, and this time I didn't get lost in the city, so I can luckily skip over that part once we finally get to end of all of this, which still is a good bit more of me just looking at stuff. You can just feel how chapter 3 had no light world. Toby wanted to put even more in this chapter, especially with how both are released at the same time. So it doesn't feel as bad as it would if you were just starting chapter 4 and have to go through all of that. Tragically, do I, because of me doing this for the first time, not already know what the solution to the piano puzzle is. You can input them preemptively without seeing what the solution is, as long as you at least know how to do inputs at all. I thought you have to simply hold in a direction, but you have to hold in a direction and press the input key to actually do the input, so I missed up a lot of time just wiggling around with a stick. Following apart, I should have just died as quickly as I can, as I did try for a while after I finished everything to actually get to the end. And technically you can get to the end, even if it is really hard. I was never able to do it, but these swords come down in a very consistent pattern, so if you learn that, is it possible to get to the Roaring Night and get absolutely nothing from that. Yep, you're not even getting some random trinket from doing this really hard thing. You simply have to be complacent with you having the fulfillment of doing it. Now then does the actual real gameplay start, where we have to once again dash through these things, and I try to avoid taking damage, like an idiot who thinks that it is relevant to avoid damage in a speedrun. Following with something where at least for once can say that doing this on the first time, you cannot just know where to go in an invisible maze. Despite everything, am I still doing quite well on my first run through, not messing up as much as you could possibly. Naturally all due to the knowledge that most likely you want to go to the right. And that is most of the time correct. I also had to test out what the red thing would do to you, even if it did mess up a little bit. I couldn't imagine that it would instantly kill me. Afterwards did I hear that when you remove all the shadow, that thing is just one of the Titan spawns, simply that you don't see it. I for one first thought that it was some weird garrison, like the garrison of the second part of this chapter. But no, he genuinely was just all the time at the start of this. For Garrison, he is slow, but that doesn't matter. You can't talk to him to make him speed up, but you can also just run away from him, and that is okay enough. He will simply warp after you. And in the fights he also can help you speed them up. As this is an unskippable fight, is it the fastest way to doing it, if you would know that that is the case, as he can in 2 rounds appease both enemies, unlike me trying to do it with attacking, which still is only 2 turns but overall more actions, though maybe him going in and talking is slower overall compared to just attacking. Now this is a part where we will be missing a lot of time compared to a real speedrun, where you simply can input the thing from the get-go. Despite Garrison going to the left and me at first trying to go up, is the piano always there on the right, and you can simply input the piano inputs if you know them preemptively. Also is this a room where you can miss stuff if you don't get it off the get-go, meaning first go right when you go up to get the candy there, and then go left and tell Garrison to go left further, for nothing but 1 more HP, so you're not missing much outside of some random healing items and HP that doesn't matter in the end. So let's go over to the joke fight, and I don't know how many know about this, but Garrison can recruit these guys. Garrison, not you. If you do the old man action here, does he recruit them after the second time, not you. Including that they end up in his library, but only if you do that action, I think. Still being up to debate though if doing the Garrison action or attacking and then pacifying the enemy is faster, with how long the Garrison speaking and moving in off frame is. I mean, just consider all the old school games where people move at specific places that for you take longer to get go, just so that slower moving NPCs get off screen faster and you can move again. And yes, I first went into the wrong direction. I will be cutting out of that one. I simply went to the end and then had to go back. But here at least I did the Bibliox dodge. And I don't even want to know what in Japanese the recruitment strategy for Bibliox is. As now, do I have to spell things out in Japanese? It would be really unfair if it was in English for Japanese speakers. Then again, does the joke only work because English is so weird that it is probably the only language in the world with an alphabet that still allows you to not know how to read and write from only one thing. Here we are now once again doing side stuff that doesn't matter. And it is not as if you couldn't know that you probably only get bonus stuff from going there. Though is it quite helpful that I got the Vampire Axe for this, as for the first time ever did I realize how to use items in this. It took me all the way to chapter 4 to finally use the menu properly. What a speedrun this is. Definitely not one where I get this immediately in the fastest way you could, and then also go for the bonus stuff once again. Though I will say that this time these bonus things are something that will be very helpful for me, as this chapter was very long and there were some certain things that happened to me. At least do I then quickly get over to the other form. And here look, for the first time am I really using the inventory and trying to do things properly. Just that this is taking so much time when I need to struggle through reading what these things are in a language where I can barely make out what the words mean. The only reason why I can even understand anything at all here is because of the heavy use of English-like words. Well then, over to the next room, where we need to get the next thing, and me once again trying to avoid damage. But hey, This time it's not as bad, as going straight through is mostly enough for this. Still do I not know where to go in this room, so I find the hidden thing that I maybe was able to see there, but how could I not know that there is also an exit on the left, so I have to go there first. Good that we at least don't have to backtrack and just immediately teleport to the exit here. Following with a longer piano sequence that would save even more time if you already knew what the inputs are. Going right over into a boss that really is probably everyone's favorite from this chapter. The Titan is nice and looks cool and all, but this boss really is something else that is now coming up. And as we are playing on Japanese, and my bare-bones Japanese knowledge is sufficient enough for this boss, can I tell you what the jokes are of Jackenstein in Japanese, though I cannot tell you what the speaking gimmick of the Japanese Jackenstein is. Naturally, is he separating the words a bit too much, though do I not know if he also does some weird misspeaking and using wrong words that sound similar to other words. This is now, and I have to be honest, the boss where I died to once, due to being too impatient and trying to get through this faster than you can, constantly running into everything I can find. Sometimes patience really is a virtue. Therefore, let us just wait it out a little bit more until the gimmick finally appears. The thing he says in Japanese is Nagai Shizugi, which means Nagai is long and Shizugi is too much. So he's basically just saying the same thing as he's saying in English. You are taking too long. Though will that joke not easily translate into all the other jokes he does during this, as those cannot be constructed out of the Japanese hiragana. I do wonder how long they took to figure out what to say here to make it proper, as even in a language very similar to English, like German, is it not easy to find a similar sounding thing that works in the exact same way as you are taking too long. Though without breaking grammar or anything like that, can I simply not find anything that would work the same way as the English way does. As many people on the internet love to say, is your and your not the same word, and they're easily used wrongly. Well, in this case, does he use it for both things? And spoken does it work, while it is written the wrong way around. That is something that is hard to translate over. That is exactly why, for this upcoming one, we are simply saying Nagai. Japanese doesn't use pronouns in the way English does, so we simply have to say the word, and that is also sufficient enough for the same joke, I guess. The fat difference being naturally that they have to stretch out Nagai to the length of you're long. But that one was still the easy one. There's one later on that will be far more difficult to translate with how weird it works. And well, I already know what they translated it into, so instead let's just look at me running into damage I really could avoid, but I am too impatient to do so. Jackenstein only starts to hunt you once you are past a certain point, and I don't even think on every track. So I simply just took damage for no reason, and that exact damage I am taking on these boards is the reason why the fight before this I lost the fight. But what can you do on your first time around? I simply reacted to what I saw and didn't know that you simply can go slow, and that is fine enough for this one. Thereafter is now a joke that is also inbaked into the language, that it doesn't work in Japanese the way it works in English, with Japanese just not structuring sentences in a way where you can say you're taking too long is taking too long. But this is now the granddaddy of all the jokes in here, where we are not even saying these words with their real meaning, but instead misuse them from their sounds to build an entirely different word. There never stood any chance with this joke, having to simply say In other words, did they say kawaii ski and ski ski to mimic somewhat the structure of Nagai Shizuki. With what he actually says is of course cute, I like it, and I like it, I like it. There was just no universe where you would translate that properly, even when I tried for a little bit to trying to translate that into German, a language that is of the same family group. The only way I was able to do it was saying the word for you in German, du, in a weird way, so that you can sound out tu. But hey, they did a great job to the limited abilities given to you when translating things, especially for jokes that are all based around how the language works in and of itself. We also barely scraped by now with the end of this fight. I really suck at Jackenstein, as it would seem. But hey. In another universe I would have used items in my first go around and then survived. I simply forgot they exist, with me never reading anything, did not even think about the option what I can do. But still did we get through it somehow in the end, and I didn't have to see the phase where just droplets of TP fall from the sky, in the case that... With Jackenstein done, do we now get the ability of climbing, and I still do not know if simply climb all the way, slow and steady is better, or if you instead go with the jump all the time and use the speed boost you get after having jumped. And even then it's the question, would you just jump as far as you can and stop while charging up, or instead always do short jumps, which barely have any charging and stopping time? Well, these things are not something to be figured out by the person who plays something for the first time, and instead for some people who try to figure it out someone later, when they try to optimize speedruns. Instead, let's see where my climbing brings me, because it is a place that maybe even some people miss. So will we first go through another of these segments, where I am figuring my way through quite well for all that is there. Once again, do I, deprived of vision, find the way to the goal quite fast, even if I presume that here there aren't many pathways. And I do need to use the gong that is out of the way to find my way through, naturally, with me barely being able to see anything. This was specifically designed so that you would do it like that. What means we're reaching more of the grand puzzle and more of running away from Titan spawns. You do wonder where they are coming from when the Titan isn't spawned at this point. Will that be something explained later on, or just some plot to drive you forward for this specific scene in chapter 4? I perhaps also said that Jackenstein is everyone's favorite, though did I miss over a certain other person of this chapter that I didn't think about when I saw Jackenstein, and his gimmick being something people really like when they see it for the first time. So now let's skip over a little bit of more walking around back and forth, and go to the part where I have to search where I'm supposed to go to. I do find my way here relatively quickly, and then have to struggle my way through the statue room. That I struggle to figure out where the path is between the statues. I simply think that I can squeeze between two statues, which you naturally can't, even if the hole that you are seeing looks large enough. But well, we do find the end ultimately, and have to struggle through more statues to figure out where I'm now supposed to go. This room was one of those that could look really impressive on my first go around, or it looked exactly like this one. We have now ended it, and I think this was the second to last of these things, or the last note thing we needed. Still, do I now go on an excursion to a room you don't need to be? I wouldn't know that you don't need to be here, just that I am doing this because I found this room and I'm now trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, which just wastes a lot of time for getting not all that relevant things in the end. I still don't even equip the things I'm getting out of this, and then I'm failing this puzzle on the first time and have to redo it to waste even more time than already. I couldn't even tell you what you get out of this, because I never used it in the end. Maybe I should have simply turned around once I saw that there's just a chest at the end of this, and possibly a fight with it. So was I lucky that it was no fight, and simply a "don't annoy me, now I have to go away." And all that for a power band. Maybe helpful, maybe not. I'm very certain I didn't use it at any point in this chapter. That is a trick when you are doing this in a language you only are bad at. I can't simply glance at the words and guess from it what that is, and have to read it slowly, or skip over it and don't know what I have. So did I not know that I get equipment, even if at this point I finally start to realize how to use equipments. What I then want to say, once when I redid this chapter, even if that didn't count for anything, as I didn't have to do anything in this chapter, it was just me finishing off after doing the night fight. Did I try on the grand piano to play the notes you need to play there, and well, it always screws up at the last note. It doesn't matter what you do there. They hard lock you from doing anything but those specific notes, and then on top of it, always break you off when you play the last note. There's just no way through but to go through this room. A room where it is very easy to get caught by these enemies if you don't know where they are. On the other hand, if you know where they are they really easy to dodge, like how I did in my rerun. But now time to go back to the grand piano and not play the notes that are given to us. In fact, I walked straight past that pass, because I thought once I play that piano would it immediately go to the next part, when there still was a secret boss for me to go to. And for that boss, I struggled so much to find where the things are I need for it, that I wandered around all across the universe to find where I need to be. The one path I'm supposed to go to, I thought that wasn't the path I need to go to, simply because it was a layout with all those prophecies there, and I thought those were just at the beginning of the chapter, not at the part where you need to search for the stuff. So in the end, did it take me far too long to finally go in this direction and go to the pathway that was locked off before, that I never went to, so I didn't even know that there was a locked off path here. Okay, I now want you to look down at the timer. Yeah, we still have a little bit more to go, and the time this video already took, that was the entirety of me playing through chapter 1 or 2, and those both were way less edited than this one is. That means I will have a little bit of time to finally finish my Deltarune story. This may now really sound ironic, but I don't really play video games anymore. Strange to say when this is literally me playing a video game in a video, but for myself I just lost interest in doing it. I do think it is interesting for something like this, but I myself simply no longer enjoy them to just play them for no reason. My reason now just being doing a dumb video out of it. That means, even once then I got interest in Deltarune, was I fine to simply watch others play through the story, and that was it for me. Therefore do I have seen chapter 3 and 4. In fact, for the longest time did I never even think I would buy this, and would simply watch others play it. But that is not what happened in the end, is it now? The reality is that the only reason why I even bought Deltarune was to do the night fight. I simply thought I have to do it. It is basically the same as if you bought Undertale exclusively to do the Sans fight. But well, now that I have the game, can I at least for the upcoming chapters play them normally as is. So yeah, I never even intended to make this. It was just on a whim when I bought the game, that what if I'm doing a video out of it, me playing through it for the first time. As I already knew that I can't give the first playthrough reaction, did I have to think of something else, and that something else was found quite quickly. After all, playing through a game is different than simply reacting to the story. I still had to deal with puzzles, and especially doing it on Japanese was that even more special than just playing through it as fast as I can. Just look at me struggling every time there's something language related and I have to deal with it. So that is the entire reason why I'm doing this and not just showing a first time playthrough. And then naturally is there also a second boss fight I really wanted to do, the upcoming one. With just the night fight was I not really thinking about it, but with what we are now coming up, that was what gave me the final push to buy this finally. And as we are talking about it, is it no time to prepare for this hidden boss here? Look at me actually using the inventory to the best of my ability, trying to figure out what I have to equip, as I already know what is upcoming. After all, have I seen it? Do I know what I need for this boss fight? And that is simply the highest defense possible. No attacking matters at all in this, and outside of the vampire axe and its healing effect, is no other weapon relevant. This fight was one that I couldn't first try, like all of them. Another one of those fights where it got really difficult with how my keyboard layout is. The first beginning part is just easy, it is simply the Undyne fight. The real issue comes once we get into the diagonals. Doing those quickly and precisely, moving back and forth, that is not an easy thing to do. So I died in this fight 2 times before I finally got it. And even now do I still struggle to do diagonals correctly. I am simply wiggling the stick around until I finally hit the thing. I probably am consistent at doing the fight, still is it not the most consistent way of dodging things. At least am I not struggling with this specific attack, which many people struggle with, but I don't know, so hard does it not seem in the end. You simply have to move in a circle. I'm pretty sure he aims at where you priorly were, so if you hawk just one side, will it constantly go to that direction, but if you go in circles, will it chase after you. After that, this hammer attack. Even with my knowledge about doing rhythm games and being able to sight read, is it not that easy for me to figure out where the safe spots are in that one. It mostly is okay, but it is really weird with how the box is shaped. Usually your input line isn't that shaped with an edge in it. Oh, and these shells were what in the end really gave me struggle with how I'm struggling at doing diagonals. Them with moving around in a circle the later ones were not an easy thing to do. But naturally am I also taking a lot of random damage I don't need to take for this one. That is simply me being bad and has nothing to do with me not being able to control it correctly. I am simply not used to read when one of those arrows actually comes to you, in those times where those with different speeds coming at you. Following then is this attack, where I also struggle to know when you can go over, as the hitbox is a little bit longer active than I thought. Outside of that was it afterwards of course very easy to do. Unlike this one where you finally see how much I struggle to actually read through this, unlike the first one where it was somewhat easy to do. What I also figured out, apparently does it not matter if you use healing or root buster, both give the exact same amount of star points to finish the fight off. Meaning as long as in this fight you do always either root buster or healing, would that be the fastest way to go through. The way how grazing with these arrows works is that in the last moment you block them. That is how you get enough TP for that one. However, with how much TP healing takes, if you need to heal, is that of course a real struggle. As much as this attack was. This is the attack where I really felt that the weird way my keyboard is not made for this type of fight. Going back and forth that precisely just wasn't an easy thing to do. And now we are also finally finished with the fight. Quite the short and easy fight after all. That means we can now go back to talking a little bit of other things, as there's still quite a little bit of more to go where not much is able to be said to. And that bit being what I'm going to do once chapter 5 comes out. This for now is a 4-part series and this is a 4th part. Well, with chapter 5 will it be a 4-part series and that will be the 5th part of it. I have no idea what I'm going to do for chapter 5. I will be real with you, I have absolutely no problem in ruining that chapter for me. Also quickly, while we are here, funny thing that I never read the cheat, but in fact the fastest way to doing the piano is go in and then immediately quit out, as the game knows that it would be unreasonable for you to actually remember those notes and play them, or it would be mean to write them down, so it simply does it for you when you can't do it on the first try. Going back to chapter 5, the thing is, when the chapter comes out, I could totally try to do the same thing I did here, as I don't care if the game is ruined for me. I no longer am that much interested in playing video games for just playing them, even if I like the story. Am I okay if I do some funny bit out of it? But on the other hand, could it also very well be that people want to see me actually reacting to the story more than doing this dumb gimmick I'm doing here? I simply did this gimmick as I had no other choice, with how I already saw the story beforehand. That leaves now then multiple options open for me. I could completely do it like this one and just speedrun through as fast as I can. On top would I then also actually have no idea at all about anything, not even remotely where I need to go, unlike right now, where I at least have some idea what I need to do to get to the end of the story. On the other hand, a more interesting way would be, and in that case I would also then finally swap over to playing in English instead of Japanese, to actually be able to read stuff, and then speedrun it still, though will I not count the times when I'm in a cutscene. That would be a fair compromise to trying to be as fast as I can, while still being able to react to the story as much as possible. On the other hand, would there be then the third option of completely screwing the speedrun idea? Maybe I still have a timer running, but I don't care about being fast and simply play the game like you should normally do on your first time playing through it. There's even the possibility of doing some sort of stream for this. So I will put it here, as those people who will watch this far will be the most interested probably in me doing chapter 5 and how I'm playing through it. There could totally be the option that people want to see me react to the story more than some dumb gimmick for it. Not as if that gimmick wouldn't prevent me from still not completely knowing where to go, just that it would be even worse if I have seen the chapter not anything at all, and then those times where I go in the wrong direction like right now I did, would be even worse. It could be funny, but it could also not be interesting, especially if I'm streaming. Do people probably not want to see me speedrun through, as they first want to see the story? Of course the gimmick would be that I could be the world record holder for the few seconds that those people who actually care to play the game, and going by how many people have speedrun chapter 3 and 4 even for now, is it very likely that the people who will be speedrunning the game would still play through it slowly at first, so at least I could be world record holder for the few seconds they take to finally finish off the game. But well, that is not something for me to decide, as I do not care either way. The thing I only have to say for this part is, why are there always text boxes when you try to go the right direction? When I went right and text box appeared, I simply thought the text box said, "Not now, we need to actually do this." So I went in the other direction, which was the wrong direction, as the text box just told you to go to the right, and it was some sort of, are we really going to do this now? Well, back in the other dark world, and now the upside down dark world, am I not stopped off once again going for side stuff? I still cannot get it into my head what speedrunning actually means, so I still go for all the side things I can, including the chest and extra room, but at least up here I stopped in going that direction and first decided to go down here. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I went down there because I thought that there was some side thing I could get there first. After everything, am I still trying to play the game normal, even if the entire gimmick of this was of me speedrunning it on my first way through? I am faster than you would normally be on a normal playthrough, but I am still not as fast as I could be if my mindset was at the correct place. I guess it is a good thing when playing through a game for the first time. So the only thing that would make me fast is my general skill at doing things for the first time and trying to figure out how they work quickly. Like this climbing section is probably going somewhat decently in speed, but the one thing I just still can't correctly figure out is how long you have to charge until you can finally release at the right speed you need to go. I simply always preemptively cut it off and then have to recharge it. That would be quite annoying if I actually try to speedrun this and don't just do it as some side gimmick. And oh boy, more climbing. This is really going to be a thing in this chapter, is it now? That was what now? The fourth time in a row basically that we had to do some bigger climbing section? It's not that I'm really going to complain about it. It's more that it is really noticeable that you're just doing the same action over and over again. No matter how good the action is, it can get quite stale if you are not in the right mindset for it. The biggest issue with these climbing sections being that what am I supposed to say? Yes, I can do them slow, no, I can't do them fast. That is the all things I can say to it. I never messed up majorly in this and simply got as fast as you can for not perfectly knowing the route and messing up sometimes with jumping up. And here you also see me charge up and afterwards move up normally. I have no idea what is faster. I could measure it right now if I really were after it, but that is just too much effort as I would have to put them side by side. No, hey, in this section I'm so fast I can even see Garrison, as this part is not with the Titan spawn, as you can actively see if you are fast enough to see where the sound is coming from. Following with the part where I for once actually use my Japanese skills and really do read what these things are saying and try to answer correctly based on that. Though in the end are these just mostly words that are English words written in the Japanese alphabet. The one thing that was written in Japanese was church bells. I don't know what the word for bell is, but I do recognize the word for church, which of course is written with the kanji for teaching and meeting. I guess that is what a church is. You are taught to meet others. Well now, let's go over to this fight, where I have to say something a little bit more strange probably. But first of all, do I want to say, I genuinely closed my eyes for this fight, and you can do this fight completely deaf for the most of it. I always had to look at the beginning of it a little bit, but I then just completely relied on my ears to catch these bullets. It does need some rhythm feeling of you to still be in beat once these things come out. You can hold it preemptively in one direction to at least have to know when you need to start, but afterwards you to begin with can't see much anyways. What this did make me think about is, there is really no game out there where blind people would be better in than seeing people, is there now? It would be interesting to have a game that is so challenging for the ears that blind people who their entire life are used to using their ears and not their eyes to see the world would be majorly advantaged at doing it. Now that would be an interesting game to design. Most likely exactly something like this and similar challenges, where you have to hear directions with stereo sound and act based on what you can hear. The limits really are infinite. You could even possibly do something like a racing game and do then stereo sound to make you hear where things are more dampened and have to dodge in the other direction. This is just a very simple game, as we can't make this too hard after all. Everyone has to play this and beat this. But I do think that this in a very hard version would be quite a fun bonus side experience to do. And that was just a small excursion into my brain. This is how it works. It sees something and immediately thinks, yeah, but what could you do further with it than just the basic thing? I do like to tinker with pre-existing ideas and think about how much further you could go with it than just the basic thing that was shown. We also are going to finally reach the end of this fight. This is soon going to end, and I right now struggle to say things for what is still upcoming, as there are just this attack I think, and then we are finally done with it. So here it is. We are now done with the second part of this chapter, or maybe you could call it the third part if you want to call the Light World 1 part with how absurdly long that one was. Back to here, and this room in specific, where I did not dodge the Bibliox. Of course I had to get hit by them, even if it is not all that difficult to avoid them after all. And yes, I still will not even attempt to do that fight with trying to do the Bibliox recruit. Who knows what it would be if I actually tried to do it. I guess it would be interesting for me playing through in Japanese, but that we can't get here. What we instead get is me again going in the wrong direction, doing this side thing once more, like all the times I do otherwise. At least I don't suck at doing it. When I went through this for the second time, they had to redo this room about 5 times before I finally reached the end. I don't know why I sucked that much at doing this really easy room. Now then, back to the route where I'm supposed to be. This looks somewhat like what you're supposed to do. I am going just by reacting to what I see. Still does it look pretty well. And that square pattern was so mean. What are you supposed to do to dodge it? Go back to dodge it that way? Well, I'm not going to do that one. Instead, am I going through this room and of course get hit by an enemy. I could have just avoided by going further straight instead of randomly deciding what if I go backwards and try to find something there. These fights would be quite a lot easier if you're messing up to getting into them, if there was some sort of run button, like in Undertale. Though when I think about it, unlike in Undertale are these overworld encounters, how would it even work to begin with if you're running? Probably something similar to Paper Mario, where you are shortly invincible and the enemy is frozen once you have run. Just leaving up the question, what would be the penalty for running? Is it just that you can fail it or do you lose some money? And yes, even if I could pacify the enemy, am I still attacking the enemy, which is probably as fast as pacifying in the end. Meaning we are reaching this room, and what is those node patterns meant for? Is it ever used anywhere, or is it simply the first note you are supposed to play to get out of here? I don't know. I think it is quite obvious what you are supposed to do once you realize that the piano is moving with whatever inputs you are doing. And this is also, despite me doing it for the first time, going quite quickly, is it now? Leaving us with this room, a room where I'm wondering if the damage you are taking is relevant or not. It could be that you have to survive the first part and then just take cutscene damage in the end. So taking unnecessary damage at the beginning would mean that you are slower. Then again, do I not go into this room without having taken any damage? That does mean there's some sort of gimmick here with how you are forced to take damage, that it is adapting the damage to what you already have taken. My question is if you can die to this early, or if it is simply going faster over into this death ray at the end, if you are taking more damage than you're supposed to at the beginning where you still can't dodge it. It also leaves open the question, what if the Shadow Mantle actually does reduce the damage from these swords? Does this room take even longer, as you are taking longer until you finally have 1 HP? Well, not the question for me to answer. On my first playthrough, we are going over into more climbing sections, with having skipped an absurd amount of cutscenes, and the one where everyone goes, whoa, do I probably can at least say some of my thoughts about Deltarune, now that we are going near the end of it. There's no word where I could show you what my first reaction to things were, but there is a word where I can at least tell you my general thoughts about it. As said before, is Chapter 1 not one I like, even now. In fact, I still haven't really seen Chapter 1 at all. I have seen everything post Chapter 2, including Chapter 2's both routes and then what comes after that. But Chapter 1 I really never saw in a normal way. I'm just not interested in it. It is probably a good thing that Deltarune released the way it did, because when I saw Chapter 1 I immediately lost interest right from the get-go. If it wasn't this periodically released, would I have never seen other chapters of it, as then people simply played all of it at once, and I saw the first thing and then clicked off. Going afterwards, let's just say it right off the get-go. Chapter 4 is the best chapter for many reasons. Then do I have to think about Chapter 2 and 3. They are good for different reasons. Chapter 3 feels like a shitpost, but a good one. Usually I really hate them, but if they are well made, are they good. Chapter 2 simply exists. It is solid all around. I do really like Spamton. I just like that type of character. And it does good setting up for exactly this current chapter, with telling what happens if you go darker than even absolute darkness and beyond that one. Outside of that, can I not really say what I like more of Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, so I will simply say they are on par. Both have good things, both have bad things. Chapter 3 is probably better because of the hidden boss, but from the chapter itself, what the story is about, is Chapter 2 maybe the better one, as Chapter 3 is mostly just some side minigames and not much progressing real story. It is very self-contained. On the other hand, would you not see this if I wouldn't enjoy Deltarune in total? So I guess that clears that option. It is lost in the archives of time what my real first reaction was. It is completely different from how you react to something when you see it from the first time and when you get time to think about what happened. For example, when I first saw Tanner, I really went poggies. I just went crazy over the weird gimmick he had. But next to him moving completely different than he should be allowed to in this type of game, is there not really much to him. All we do learn is that he is depressed that he isn't used anymore, and nothing more than that. As I'm also not so all in into the material, because I simply saw the game one time through, do I not have much to say to things like the night. I simply thought it was cool, but people go crazy about the night right now. And I simply think that is interesting. I didn't even think about what he could be or who he could be. I thought he was simply something there. In reality, what I think about the Knight is that he is no light worlder, but many people think he is Carol, or something of that matter in that case. Chapter 4 is the one where it is really sad and I can't have first reactions, because here are things where reactions go past what you could simply describe. Especially the music of this chapter is just something else. It is really a step above the other chapters. And then there are things like the introduction of the music of the second/third part of this chapter. Or how about Garrison's music, which I think is one of the best tracks period, even better than Spamton's music, or some of the other big ones. To be a little bit criminal right now, I don't really think Rootmaster is that good as they will make it out to be. It is okay, but I don't really go crazy about it. The story I do like, I do think it is well designed, but that is not as interesting as seeing me actually viscerally react to hearing the music for the first time. And being here, should we now finally talk about this fight. I died to this fight twice in a row. I simply couldn't recognize how I'm supposed to push back these dark spawns. I'm pretty sure that these small ones can never reach you if you just stand still. That is not how I acted, so I moved too much and just died over and over again. Look on the other side where I'm pretty sure someone 1 or 2 rounded this fight, while I died to it twice in a row. And did you know that you get some scrub items if you die to this? I have no idea what those items are, as I simply can't read and don't really use items in this fight. It is crazy how much better I got at the game once I was here for the second time, and after I did everything else in the game. Then this fight was no longer an issue, with me actually also being quite quickly at gathering TP in this fight, staying close to enemies but not getting hit. Unlike during my first time being here, where I really was bad at staying close to enemies and still got hit all the time. I do think it is simply a mindset issue, that when I try to be fast, I'm trying to do dumb things, instead of trying to be fast but trying to be correct first. So I'm running into things, thinking that it makes me faster, but most of the time it makes me slower because of extra time I had to spend to correct out the mistakes I did earlier. Well then, this fight is dragging out quite a while. Probably would it not be all that much faster in a world where I don't do the night fight in chapter 3, even with optimal equipment. So don't I equip many things for this and simply took whatever I had currently lying around, with a selective way how some extra things I did and some I skipped over purposefully. Is my equipment setup for this right now really bad? Anyways, that is pretty much all I have to say to this fight, meaning we can go over into the final spurt. I now will say the total end thing I think about Deltarune. And after this fight we can talk about my run through Deltarune in specific. My first time seeing everything, I was really quickly regretting that I don't see that for the first time like a normal person did. It did pay off quite a lot to wait all this time. Then again, did I not like the first chapter, and just going from the second chapter would I not be this big of a fan? It is a funny thing how fate sometimes plays tricks on us. It took me seeing the Deltarune chapter 3 and 4 release on something completely different, unrelated, to have YouTube recommend Deltarune to me so that I would be interested in doing Deltarune. And it is crazy how little you can hear about something when you don't care. Because I just saw chapter 1 then immediately shut off, did I never see anything about this game. Like quite literally I didn't hear a singular word, no matter how popular especially Spamton was for a time after his chapter 2 release. At least could I find the time to play it on the halfway mark, instead of only going in when the finale has dropped and having already seen that, and then there would be so much missed, as the finale can only be way better than this Titan fight here is. And yes, for this Titan fight, I of course once again did not read and did not realize that I have to do the Suzy action for this one. We will see what happens in the future with the story, and I will be part of it. Instead is now time to talk about my times. Chapter 1 still looked pretty good, with 57 minutes in total. But chapter 2 was where things already started to go bad, with how half of that playing time is just me doing Spamton, for in the end then 1 hour 35 minute time. Chapter 3, despite being technically the longest chapter, is only so because of all the text you have to go through, so I took 1 hour 41 minutes for that one. That not including the night fight, and chapter 1 of course also not with the Javel fight. Chapter 4 things went really wrong. 3 hours 21 minutes for that chapter. A lot of it being me not knowing where in the world I'm supposed to go to. That leaves us with a total playing time from buying the game and starting it off to the end of chapter 4 of 7 hours and 35 minutes. So are we not done, as I have skipped over 2 optional bosses, Javel being only 42 minutes on top of chapter 1's 57 minutes. Then the night took 6 hours and 35 minutes, meaning the total time until I beat the night was 14 hours and 53 minutes. That of course not being done in one go, but split over 2 days. The night was simply a fight where I had to replay all 3 first chapters to be rightly equipped to do it. Here is now the time for me usually to input some dumb joke about horrible things happening if you don't subscribe. Instead, does that not feel appropriate for this one? I will simply say, if you want to see me play chapter 5, do you have to subscribe? I don't know what my next video will be. It will be something completely off the path most likely. So, will I play chapter 5 once that comes out to find Watashi Tachi no Deltarune?